Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Vrajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Vrajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mr. Pad Paramahansa, Purudikacharya Ashtotar, the Sri Srimad Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa, Purudikacharya Ashtotar, the Sri Srimad Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Guntaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakta Ki Jai. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Narayanam Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire. Before reciting this Srimad Bhagavatam, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the Supremest Human Being, unto Mother Saraswati, the Goddess of Learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashta Prayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavat Seveya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtaki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 4th day of January 2021 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada. Canto 4, The Creation of the Fourth Order, Chapter 28, Puranjan becomes a woman in the next life. Text number 52. Brahmana Hovacha. Oh, I'm sorry. All right. Ka Tvam Kasyasi Ko Vayam Shayano Yasya Shochasi Janasi Kim Sakayam Mam Yenagre Vichacharta Ha Brahmana Hovacha Katvam Kasyasi Kovayam Shayano Yasya Shochasi Janasi Kim Sakayam Mam Yenagre Vichacharta Ha. Okay. Brahmana Hovacha Katvam Kasyasi Kovayam Shayano Yasya Shochasi Janasi Kim Sakayam Mam Yenagre Vichachartaha Katvam Kasyasi Kovayam Shayano Yasya Shochasi Janasi Kim Sakayam Mam Yenagre Vichachartaha Katvam Kasyasi Kovayam Shayana Yasya Shochasi Janasi Kim Sakayam Mam Yenagre Vichachartaha. Brahmana Hovacha Katvam Kasyasi Kovayam Shayano Yasya Shochasi Janasi Kim Sakayam Mam Yenagre Vichachartaha. Brahmana Hovacha Katvam Kasyasi Kovayam Shayano Yasya Shochasi Janasi Kim Sakayam Mam Yenagre Vichachartaha. Brahmana Hovacha. The learned Brahmin said, Ka, who, Tvam, you, Kasya, whose, Asi, are you, Kaha, who, Va, or, Ayam, this man, Shayanaha, lying down, Yasya, for whom, Shochasi, you are lamenting, Janasi Kim, do you know, Sakayam, friend, Mam, me, Yena, with whom, Agre, formally, Vichacharta, you consulted, Ha, certainly. Translation. The Brahmin inquired as follows, who are you? Whose wife or daughter are you? Who is the man lying here? It appears you are lamenting for this dead body. Don't you recognize me? I am your eternal friend. You may remember that many times in the past you have consulted me. Purport. When a person's relative dies, renunciation is automatically visible. Consultation with the Supersoul seated within everyone's heart is possible only when one is completely free from the contamination of material attachment. One who is sincere and pure gets an opportunity to consult with the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his Paramatma feature, sitting within everyone's heart. The Paramatma is always the Chaitya Guru, the spiritual master within, and he comes before one externally as the instructor and initiator spiritual master. The Lord can reside within the heart, and he can also come out before a person and give him instructions. Thus, the spiritual master is not different from the Supersoul sitting within the heart. An uncontaminated soul or living entity can get a chance to meet the Paramatma face to face. Just as one gets a chance to consult with the Paramatma within his heart, one also gets a chance to see him actually situated before him. Then one can take instructions from the Supersoul directly. This is the duty of a pure devotee, to see the bona fide spiritual master and consult with the supersoul within the heart. When the Brahmin asked the woman who the man lying on the floor was, she answered that he was her spiritual master, and that she was perplexed about who or what to do in his absence. At such a time, the supersoul immediately appears, provided the devotee is purified in heart by following the directions of the spiritual master. A sincere devotee who follows the instructions of the spiritual master certainly gets direct instructions from his heart from the supersoul. Thus, a sincere devotee is always helped directly or indirectly by the spiritual master and the supersoul. This is confirmed in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Guru Krishna Prasadai Pai Bhakti Lata Bij. If the devotee serves his spiritual master sincerely, Krishna automatically becomes pleased. Yasya prasadat bhagavat prasada. By satisfying the spiritual master, one automatically satisfies Krishna. Thus, the devotee becomes enriched by both the spiritual master and Krishna. The supersoul is eternally the friend of the living entity and always remains with him. The supersoul has always been ready to help the living entity, even before the creation of this material world. It is therefore stated here, Yena agre vichacharta. The word agre means before the creation. Thus the supersoul has been accompanying the living entity since before the creation. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and to all members of Sri Parampara. So, this saga of King Puranjan has taken an interesting turn. I always remember this section because there's in a few verses, perhaps the next few verses, we'll find a very explicit explanation of Srila Prabhupada about how we fell from the spiritual world. And I often turn to this section of Prabhupada's books when people are a little confused about that or they doubt it. So, the unknown Brahman has come just at the point where the daughter of King Vidarbha, otherwise known as Puranjan Reborn, is ready to enter into the flames of King Malayadvaja's funeral pyre. And the Brahman is asking her, who are you, whose wife or daughter are you? So, why does he need to ask that if he's the supersoul? So he's presenting himself not as the supersoul right away, anyway. But his questions lead to that. Don't you recognize me? I'm your eternal friend, like that. And what Prabhupada makes the point here is that when the soul is ready, and it's rare, certainly, in this material world, but when it's purified, one can take direct instruction from the supersoul. And perhaps more importantly for us, the supersoul appears externally as the spiritual master. I should say spiritual masters, because Prabhupada mentions the instructing spiritual master and the initiating spiritual master. In order to instruct, inspire, guide the conditioned souls back to Godhead. And that external appearance of the supersoul is just part of Krishna's vast mercy, his compassion. Because really without these manifestations, the pure devotees, the great devotees who are present on this earth, there's no chance, there's no opportunity for the conditioned souls to really get the proper instruction. Maya is so powerful and so strong. So despite the fact that we're not ready, and we're really not pure, let's say not purified, but there may be some interest, some turning, some curiosity about spiritual life, about the ultimate goal of life. Why are we suffering these things? Who are we? The great souls such as Srila Prabhupada, they search out, they go to the places, Kirato, Hunanda, Pulinda, Pukasha, far away from the Vedic culture, far away where the outcasts, the papayonis, the sinful are living, and try to spread the teachings of Krishna, the pure teachings, Bhagavad Gita, as it is. And as Prabhupada often says, it's a thankless task, it's a very risky task. We were hearing about such incredible opposition to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, even threats on his life. Prabhupada also faced that, and Prabhupada pointed out Jesus Christ died for that cause because he wouldn't relent in preaching God consciousness for his time and place. So this is, by understanding this context, we should appreciate and be thankful, and that, I don't want to say attitude of gratitude, but I just said it. We should have gratitude, for being so fortunate that somehow we came in touch with the pure devotee, or the pure devotee's representative, giving us a book, inviting us to the temple, just chanting Hare Krishna, and that purification sometimes is enough. You don't know what background anyone has in purification of devotional life. Agyata Sukriti is an important concept. Agyata means unknown. Sukriti means pious activity. And as Bhaktivinoda Thakur pointed out, there's different kinds of pious activity. There's pious activity that's wholly and solely in the material realm, in which one is maybe following the Karmakanda section, the Vedas, the sacrifices. We find this very common in India more than America, certainly. But it's ultimately material. But what this Agyata Sukriti is meant is some kind of unknown devotional service. Some little service some way of done, unknowingly even, but which has its effect in the heart and may result in the next life sometimes, or some future life, getting the blessings of an association of a devotee and being receptive to the message. Not in toto, but just enough to pique one's interest so that one ends up associating with devotees coming to the temple, hitting the right keys on the keyboard, and pursuing that. And so that the instructions of the Super Soul in one's own language, because of the efforts of the representatives of the Super Soul, the spiritual master, who has translated them or had them translated, actually strike a chord in one's heart, and one begins to wake up. Wake up from a long, long sleep of ignorance, many, many births. So this conversation will ensue, and another point here is that he's the friend. This is Prabhupada, he gives this word, surit, even in his letters, this ever well-wisher. He's taking the role of the Lord. Krishna says, Bhoktaram yakatapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suridam sarvabhutanam gyatva mam shantam richati. Very famous verse. Prabhupada dubbed it the peace formula. How can we have real peace in the world? Don't forget, he came in the middle of the 60s when there was a huge peace movement. There's nothing like that today. The idea of peace is practically, if there's peace, if there's all, it's how can I get peace? Peace of mind, But where do you see a vast peace movement? It's not around. But in those days, thousands and thousands, I was part of that peace movement, But there was no peace. We tried and tried, demonstrations, hundreds of thousands. I went to Washington several times. You could talk to Judah Karma. He was part of a demonstration. There was, I think Allen Ginsberg had something to do with it. We're going to elevate the Pentagon, by mystic power, because yoga was coming in the late 60s already, And so everyone went down there, and started praying, it's kind of crazy. But, so it's sitting in right next to the to the Pentagon, this very ominous building. It's huge, and it's not so tall, but it's huge. And there's all these military police, guys with guns and helmets and all these things, So there's a famous picture there of one hippie putting a flower into the barrel of the gun, But then it came to be a point where, okay, if you keep sitting in, you're going to get arrested, And oftentimes they would beat you on the head a little bit, So at that point I said, okay, I've done my service, I backed off. But Judah Karma, he actually got arrested there. I don't know if he got beat up or not. So this was the age. The idea of peace. How can there be peace? All of this war, this death, that we're causing, and it wasn't coming. So Prabhupada, there's so much in the Bhagavad Gita about peace. Second canon, there's a lot there about shanti, and but especially that last verse of the 5th chapter, which we're coming on in an evening class. I think we'll read it tonight, if you'd like to hear it. And so it says, one who understands that Krishna is the enjoyer of all the sacrifices, he's the Lord of all creation, Sarvaloka Maheswaram, and that he's the best friend of every living entity, Suridam Sarvabhutanam. That person alone can attain real peace. So how can one realize that? That our best friend is with us in the heart and is trying to give us good instruction. In a normal society where people are raised in this inculcation of a moral sense and so forth, then when you're thinking of doing something, you say, no, I shouldn't do that. It's not the right thing to do. There's a moral, there's an ethical structure. That's the voice of the super soul, the conscience. The conscience. When you can't hear the conscience anymore, that's a sociopath. You take pleasure in causing pain. That's a very low demonic mode of ignorance. So that I remember vividly how Rupa Nuga Prabhu, one of the early leaders of the movement, he was the president when I joined in Brooklyn. Or he had just been the president, but he coined this phrase, a Krishna conscience. A Krishna conscience. It's a very nice phrase. To take in the teachings and to live by them. I mean, we all have that without calling it that. The 4 regular principles, if you're serious about devotional service, that's part of your Krishna conscience. Even though you may have some impulse to do something like that, go get a drink or something, say, no, I can't do that. That's the Krishna conscience speaking. So that means to be in touch with the super soul. He comes externally as a spiritual master and as the Shastra, as the Bhagavad Gita and other books that we read, to give us another a sense, not only the understanding of what's right and what's wrong, but the strength by the process of devotional service to do the right thing and avoid the wrong thing. That anukulyasya sankalpa pratikulyasya bharjanam. These are the first essential principles of surrender. To know, to learn what's favorable for devotional service, what's the right thing, and what's unfavorable, which is the wrong thing. And to actually be able to do that is the foundation of surrender. And it's a daily affair. So this Brahman is now going to enlighten. Brahman is super soul, Puranjan, in the form of this woman. And we should always look at the context, the larger context. It's still the allegory. It's still Narada Muni speaking to King Prachana Barishat. So Narada Muni is the representative of the super soul, speaking to Prachana Barishat, who has been involved in all of these sacrifices, right? And the first thing he does is show him those animals he's been sacrificing. Maybe he didn't say the mantras exactly right, but they're waiting for him. They'll punish him, after death. So that can be a pretty big deterrent to going down that road of animal sacrifice so he can go to heaven. That's not what we're into. So this is the same Brahman, the same super soul coming now as a Brahman, and giving Puranjan the instruction in Krishna consciousness. And the important point is this is an eternal friend. He's always our friend. Not just our friend, but the Surit. The Surit means a friend who's always got your best interest at heart. You can't have a friend on the material side, a friend that good. There's always a limit, because it's a material relationship. And if there's some breach in the relationship, some anger, or just some limit, I can loan you this much, I can't loan you more. You can sleep here for a week, but then you have to leave. The friendship has its limits. But here's the super soul. Now just imagine, he's traveling with us through all of these lower bodies, and even in this body, which is gross ultimately, and simply not just giving us good instruction, but he's giving us knowledge, remembrance, forgetfulness. That's also, he says in the 15th chapter, Sarvasya chaham hridi sannivishto matta smriti jnanam apohanangcha. I am situated in the heart of every living being, and from me come knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. You see? So whatever knowledge we're using, we use every day, just how to live in this world, but to speak of more advanced things. That's all being given to us by the super soul. And he'll give, if we want to remain materially connected, he'll give us so much inspiration for that, in the human form of life, because we have our free will. But if we want spiritual enlightenment, He'll very gladly give us that, and guide us one way or another, so that we can come in touch with pure devotee, if we're really sincere. So, I mean, many of us can. I remember your story; it was kind of amazing, how you joined, and each of us has a story, something like that. You can go in a million different ways. And many people who didn't have the blessing, or didn't have some sukriti in the background, some Krishna consciousness, went and got entangled in this and entangled in that. There was one, I'm not going to name names, there was one yogi, famous yogi, he had a whole farm up in Oregon, very popular in the 60s, 70s, I don't know if he got into the 80s or not. But it turns out to be like a criminal enterprise, Sannyasis who were encouraged to have illicit sex and all just craziness. But because of the nature of the West, where people are so ignorant, they in all ages it happens. People get misguided. But in the same generation, you had the fortunate devotees, some sukriti, which led them to Krishna consciousness. I just read a story last night in the BTG. I'd never read it before. This is from 1987. Someone was just giving a background, a questioning, because I guess every day I get questions about this change, that change, why wasn't this changed in the books, so that's my part of my service, to answer them. So there was some mix-up in the NOD, if you leave between Raganuga and Ragatmaka. Ragatmaka is the standard of devotion that the gopis and the gopas and the other in Goloka Vrindavan are completely spontaneous. Raganuga is following in the footsteps of a Ragatmaka devotee, so that one also can get Ragatmaka. One that's not at that point, but it's an advanced state. And so in the NOD there was some mix-up between Raganuga and Ragatmaka, so the devotee wrote me about that. Why wasn't this changed, or why was it changed? So I looked through the word Ragatmaka in the Vedabase to see how many times it appeared in Prabhupada's books and so forth. And so I came across an article about Ragatmaka Dasi, who I knew very well. She's not so well known now, but in the big marathon in '75, she was one of the heroes. She was a typist, very expert typist. And it was such a schedule, with 17 books in 2 months, completely unheard of. That's what Ramasa said, it's impossible, And Prabhupada famously said, impossible was a word in a fool's dictionary. And that, the fact that they were able to eventually do it, it had a tremendous effect on the whole movement. Because that goes to every service. Ultimately, you reach kind of what seems like a limit, but like book distribution, and the limits keep breaking. So anyway, she was, there, and then eventually she went to New York, got married, and came back to L.A. And they were trying to conceive a child. Her husband named Karnapur. I know them both quite well. I never heard this story before. And so she had this child, and she was very much premature. It was like 4 months pregnant, 4 or 5 months, and the child came out. He weighed less than a pound, or less one. It was just incredible. Less smaller than a hand, than an adult hand. But he was breathing and trying to survive, and so the nurses, they were in the hospital and everything. So it describes how normally when someone is the baby is that premature, the chances of survival are very, very slim, and the parents try not to get attached. There's not much involvement. But she was totally attached, totally involved in this child. She was going there, she was getting early in the morning and stay till 4 p.m. They gave the child a name, Nitai Pran, because she felt, this was a soul that is on its way back to Godhead. So they said, just when they told him, they mentioned his name, they told him the name. He's breathing in this little, what do they call it? Incubator. And so he got very excited. He's moving his hands when he heard his name. Nitai Pran, the life soul of Nitai. It's really a name for Lord, for a wonderful name. So they spent so much time, And they arranged for a little, recorder. In those days, everything was tape recorder, so they had unstoppable tape, back. And it was always praying in the bassinet, and they told the nurses, the team of nurses who were like amazed and got very into it. This is as important as any other life support system you have going. So they were very careful and keep it going in the middle of the night. So it went on, and then eventually there was a crisis. There was some clot in his little tiny heart. You can imagine how small, And so it looked like risky. And so they were chaining, and somehow or other they performed this tiny little operation on that tiny heart, and he got better. So he's going on. I forget how long it lasted, a few months. And so the child, was, looking, at Ragatmika and everything with intelligent eyes. You could see that it wasn't an ordinary child. So finally, the time came. There was some other crisis, health crisis, and she was there early in the morning, and they told her she'd come in. He's leaving his body. By then, she was preaching to all those nurses. They knew all the lingo and everything. He's leaving his body, And so she went there, and the child was looking at her, and Ragatmika was crying, and she could hardly chant. So she said, "Help me chant, help me chant." They all knew the mantra, so all the nurses and doctors are all chanting Hare Krishna, and the child, left the body, But it's pertinent because you can see how from birth, this happened, I think, and they told Prabhupada one time, there was a miscarriage, that type of thing, which is not that uncommon. And Prabhupada said, the child just had, a little time, a little karma to work off, because while he's in the womb, she was playing tapes. She had the speaker, So the point is that this is going on, and we don't know how we've been also guided and fortunate, by the Super Soul. But the point is that Krishna's always making these arrangements, and we just have to make a step forward and take the arrangements that have been made and take advantage of the gifts that we've been given. This is so much of what being Krishna conscious is, and the society is here, the deities, the books, the association, and even in these COVID days when there's so much difficulty. I don't know if I mentioned it in the morning announcements about Jai Pataka Maharaj. I think I did. There's a request for prayers. It's very important. So, what Lord Chaitanya explains in the teaching to Sanatana Goswami, how Krishna appears. He comes as expansions as the Super Soul, the guide one from within, externally as the spiritual masters, the initiating and the instructing Guru, and as the Shastra. The book Bhagavatam is none different from Bhagavad himself. These books, they allow us, just like the deity allows us to see and serve Krishna, because with our present eyes we can't see the spiritual form. So the instruction of Krishna, we can't hear it from within, but he comes externally to give us directly as a spiritual master, and also as the book, which we can study and in our own language. This is the most amazing thing. And following on from a wonderful exposition about 2 days of glorification of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, how eager he was for book production. That story of getting the press. I don't know if he told that, because I've been reading the book too. That he had to work so hard to get permission to set up a press. He was able to buy a very nice estate, with several buildings, and for a pittance, for like a few hundred rupees, because they thought it was ghostly haunted. So he got that. It was a lease, and he was able to set up his press there. Then when the lease ran out, he got another place to get the word out. This was the technology at the time. The books which can go out and people can read. And even if they don't have direct association, they can have the pure sound vibration. And Prabhupada, he took that ball and ran with it. Why shouldn't I use airplanes? Why shouldn't I travel through all, And when the computers came, yes, computers. Now, so much information comes through the computers. It's a vast wasteland. It's so dangerous. It's Prajalpa by times a trillion. But there's also the right sites if you make the right choice to get the, they're having the retreat, I think, right now. There's a wonderful Vrindavan retreat where Burijan, his wife, and Madhavananda, and they're doing I don't have time to attend. It's hours a day, if you're actually there, But there's a tremendous opportunity. And after this COVID thing has changed, just like yesterday, I gave a class to Hawaii. There's our old friend Mohan Vilas had some devotees there. I gave a little class. So a lot of devotees are doing that. So these things can all be used. They should be used for Krishna service, without getting entangled in them. So it's been said, I think it was Jiva Goswami has explained that the deity worship is actually you're relating to the super soul. Also, you're getting in touch with the super soul by all of these mantras and the deity and absorption and beautiful deities of Radha Krishna and others. So it's all a question of purification, the purification of the heart, of the senses, of the mind, of the intelligence, so that ultimately, moment to moment, we can be taking instruction from Super Soul. As Prabhupada, says that Krishna himself is writing these books. Krishna is giving me instruction of all these things that I'm doing through the heart. So that's a very pure situation to be in. But we are also fortunate, and we can take advantage of that and take this instruction, because there's always, Maya is very strong. We're so habituated to, deviate from Krishna, forget Krishna, and surrender to the allurements of Maya and the modes of nature. So many births we've become habituated. So it's not easy to overcome that conditioning, as Prabhupada talked about it. But Krishna is more powerful than Maya. Daiviyesha gunamayi mama maya duratya. It's my Maya, Krishna says. And duratya, very difficult to overcome. But one who surrenders to me can easily cross beyond it. So that means surrendering to Krishna's representative, surrendering to the instructions of the Shastra, surrendering to the instructions of the authorities, local authorities who are representing, the super soul ultimately. So that's the great opportunity we have. It's when you contemplate how lucky we are. Sometimes it's really nice to do that because it gives you impetus to really take advantage of it. It's like someone, after many years playing the lottery, finally gets a number, So all those other tickets, all that loss, suddenly you have an opportunity and you cash it in. So we've been wandering in this universe, Brahmande Brahmate Kon Bhakti, but we're this fortunate soul to have had the seed of the creeper of devotional service planted in our hearts. What is that seed? That's nice in the purport, in 19th chapter, Madhya Lila, I forget the number of the verse, where they explain what is that seed. It's the instructions, it's the holy name, it's the faith to follow them. All of that constitutes the seed, and we just need to water it. Water it with hearing and chanting, water it with trying to spread to others, which is so pleasing to Krishna. What is the reciprocation? What is the benefit? Immediately the benefit is more taste, more attraction to Krishna. So everything in relation to Krishna becomes more attractive. The deities, you remember Dharma's story, did I tell that one? Where he had to spend all night making the sweets, and then the next morning he's offering them, and he looks at the deities, he's startled how broad the smile is. He didn't see that smile before. Krishna's giving him reciprocation. So everything, will be easier to hear the holy name. Holy name will have more relish. We sometimes hear these incredible descriptions by the acharyas of how they're experiencing the holy name, And many devotees' favorite, Tunde Tanda Manida Ting Vatanate, is in the Vidagdha Madhava. when I chant the name of Krishna, I do not know how much nectar these two syllables, Krishna, have produced. When I chant them, they seem to dance within my mouth. I want to have millions of mouths to taste the sweetness of the name. When they enter into the ears, I want to have millions of ears. And when they enter the courtyard of the heart, then all the senses become inert and the mind becomes fixed on Krishna. So how fortunate, how wonderful that is. But that's a goal that we can aspire for, to increase the name. There's even the taste for the name. There's even prayers for that. This is a Namashtaka by Rupa Goswami, where there's 2 of those 8 verses are actually prayers for more taste for the name. First, he gives a nice sample. This is another way of meditating on Krishna. Different names. It's like we have our Yashamati Nandana. That's a set of names, As you're addressing the names. Amala Harinam, Amiya Vilasa. So all those names, and they embody Krishna's Leela qualities, right? So Rupa Goswami gives a similar thing. He says, Agadamana Yashoda Nandano Nandasunu Kamalanayana Gopi Chandra Vrindavanendra Panata Karuna Krishna Vityaneka Swarupe Try Mama Dr. Uchai Vardatam Namadeha. Now, did you pick up on the word Vardatam? Notice that part of the word Govardhana, right? Vardhana means to nourish. Govardhan Hill is nourishing the cows, and that's why it's so dear to Krishna. It gives it pure water and nice grass and all of that. So this is Rati Vardhana, to nourish and increase my attraction. So he gives us some sample names. Agadamana, the destroyer of the Agasura demon. Yashodanandana, Nandasunu. I hope I don't need to translate those. Kamalanayana, you of the lotus eyes. Gopi Chandra, the moon of the gopis. Their eyes blossom wide when they see your moon-like face. Vrindavanendra, Lord of Vrindavan. Pranata Karuna, I love this name. Pranata Karuna, you who are so compassionate to the surrendered souls. Pranata Karuna, and of course Krishna. Aneka, you have unlimited names. Swarupe. Twai mama naturuchai vardatam namadeya. Oh, holy name, please increase my attraction for you more and more. And then the last verse is really sweet. There's a devotee whose name consists of a couple of words in here. You may notice. Madhuri Pura. You know him? Prahlada Priya's son. Because he likes, a flood of sweetness. That's what it means. Narada vino jivana sadormi niyasam madhuri pura tvam krishna nama kamam spudame rasane rasena sada. So he says, oh, holy name, you are the inspiration of the vina of Narada. Narada vino jivana, life and soul. Sudormi niryasa madhuri pura, a flood of sweetness which consists of thick nectar. Oh, holy name, please always appear on my tongue with greater and greater relish. Let me have more and more taste for you. So you can pray to the name like that. Just like Kunti Devi prays, please, O Krishna, may all my mind always think of you, may my love always flow to you. These. And that, one day Krishna will respond and you'll just be floating in ecstasy. So that's, from the Shastra, we're getting all of these, and from the great devotees like the Rupa Goswami. What to pray for, and giving such wonderful examples of prayers and meditations on, Bhagavatam is filled with them, of beautiful poetic expressions about the beauty and the attractiveness of Krishna's form and qualities. Plus, such, what is that? There's a verse about eloquence. Actually, one line. I forget the Sanskrit. Essential knowledge spoken concisely is true eloquence. I don't know if you remember that. It's in the first chapter of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So Bhagavatam is filled with them. These verses are essential knowledge, and they're spoken concisely and so beautifully. Like I was sharing this one. I don't know if I gave this recently. Sangsara sindhum ati dustadamuti tirshor nanyak plavo bhagavatak purushottamasya lila katavasa nishevana mantarena pungso bhaved vivida dukkha davari tasya. Prabhupada would point out that every word has so many meanings, but I'll just try to give a summary. So at first he says, this is a wonderful verse at the very end of a chapter about all the different kinds of annihilations there are in this material world. Every time we die, it's a little annihilation. People want to worry about, oh my God, the pandemic, the nuclear war is coming, But everyone is going through their own personal pandemic, nuclear war every time we die. It doesn't help if you have your friends around you or your folks. You have to face that, So it's kind of a pretty grave chapter, different kinds of annihilations. So at the end is this very hopeful verse. It says, Samsara Sindham. This world is an ocean of samsara, birth and death, suffering. Ati Dushtadam, very, very difficult to cross over. But some of us who are, those who are intelligent, they aspire to cross over it. Utti Tirshur, means those who want to cross over it. So he says, for those who want to cross over this dangerous ocean of birth and death, samsara, there's only one boat. Nanyak plavo, it means there's no other boat. Bhagavatak Purushottamasya Lila Katarasa Nishevanam, means to cultivate the taste for Krishna's lila, for hearing and relishing and chanting Krishna's pastimes. Lila Kata Rasa Nishevanam, means cultivating that rasa for Krishna. Pungso Bhaved Vivada Dukkha Dabharitasya, for those human beings who are suffering all the varied, intense miseries of this world. That is the main boat. That is the only boat. Now, of course, that boat is also many varied. It means also taste for the holy name, for the word, for Krishna. That taste for Krishna overflows into the impetus to give it to others. Just like we maybe had experience, tasting a very exceptional prasad, some wonderful sabji or sweets. Prabhu, try this. This is, you'll like it so much, I remember when we used to have Sunday feasts, I always would like to serve out the prasadam, because when I joined for years, I was a total prasadam addict, I had a real Jones, we used to call it Jones. Do you remember that? That's in New York lingo. It's an addiction for halva of all kinds, So, but then I realized, I can only eat so much, and then. But when you're serving out, you can relish everybody's prasad. You know what I mean? Anyway, so that also extends to Krishna in general. Here, take this book, take the holy name. If the people out there who see that you are, you're a good salesman because you've been relishing it, you understand it, and you're blissful, and also that they feel that you really want to help them. You're not trying to make a scam, sell them something. You're trying to help them. Then that in itself is attractive. That I think is why book distribution can be so big. And that's why the salesman, did you tell the story of the salesman, the book salesman who went out, to the airport, tried to sell books, couldn't sell any books? Because he doesn't have that, it's a transcendental experience. So that relish for Krishna Katha, it overflows into everything you do in relation to Krishna. And that in itself is empowering. In any service you may be doing, it's empowering. So I should stop here. Let me read this translation again. I like to do that. The Brahmin inquired as follows: Who are you? Whose wife or daughter are you? Who is the man lying here? It appears that you're lamenting for this dead body. Don't you recognize me? I am your eternal friend. You may remember that many times in the past you have consulted me. Any questions? Comments? Okay. Anyone out there? Thank you for listening. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna Guru. Thank you for a nice class.
There's tapas. Haribol.
And we have a very nice comments in the YouTube. We have at least 20 people watching the class now.
20 people?
Yeah, they're online. They're still online. They're watching you.
Wow. You had comments? Well, read one.
Okay, we have very nice comments from Suksma 108. I always appreciate SanDiego Mandir glorifications of Mother Gopalasa Priya and now Mother Nagatmika. I was fortunate to have such association throughout the 1970s and 80s on traveling SKP.
And what's the name of the lady who's commenting?
Suksma 108.
Okay. Well, thank you. She's a great soul, this Ragatmika.
She also said that, and these times I am feeling most fortunate to have this virtual association where classes are from a temple room as opposed to Zoom, etc. Thank you for all the classes.
Listen, ask her, or if she's still listening, send us your email. I'll send you this article from Back to Godhead. It's over 30 years old now, which is amazing about Ragatmika's adventure. I only told a small part of the amazing part of it, so you can get that. Okay, thank you very much. All glories to the Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol.